decided to do my top 5 Wednesday. The theme this week from that group on Goodreads is top five top five forgettable books. Now, this was kind of hard for me because I really have a very good memory and I don't often forget books or concepts or plots, but I tried to just think of books that really did not make an impression on me, or I was just not motivated to read book two, or I just was not engaged at all. So the first book is going to be a little bit controversial, especially because of some of my friends who love this book series and this author, but it is The Glittering Court by Rochelle Mead. I went into this book a little bit tricked because I was convinced this book had to do with fairies. So going into this book, I was like, oh, great, it's a fairy book, Rochelle Mead. Rochelle Mead, no matter, I really love her world building. I love the Bloodline series. I love the Vampire Academy. I even love the standalone solo that she wrote a couple of years ago. I was so impressed with all those series. So I love her as a sci-fi fantasy writer. But going into this book, I was really expecting supernatural, and I kept waiting. I kept expecting there to be a supernatural twist. Just it never happened. And I normally love books about finishing schools and stuff like that, and it just did not capture me. The schools were not entertaining. The lead in this book was not at all engaging, and I did not like her at all, or was just not connected to her. Her choices were bizarre, and I just was not. I mean, I finished it, and I would never reread The Glittering Court, but I've heard really good things about The Midnight Jewel. But she's burned me with her non-supernatural novels, so I don't know. I might eventually one day read The Midnight Jewel and then read the subsequent books in the series, but definitely would never read The Glittering Court again. I might just stick to her supernatural books. But we will see. So that is the one book that was definitely forgettable to me. That was actually a little bit unforgettable for me was Under the Never Sky by Veronica Rossi. Time when I would just get books ones out of a lot of dystopian series and they're all currently on my Kindle. This book's on my Kindle as well. And then I read it and I just was not wowed by it enough to continue reading on. But I've heard really good things. I know that really other people really love the characters of Roar and Lib. But I felt like I had read the story before, so I felt like maybe it was just a very, very tropey to me. But I would be intrigued to read book two in the series. I would just have to reread book one. So the characters were forgettable and the plot felt a little bit more repetitive. But it was okay. I just would have to reread it and then force myself to read book two to become a little bit more connected in the characters and the world. So that's my thought about Under the Never Sky by Veronica Ross. That is The Cruelty by Scott Bergstrom. Somewhere, and I'm not sure where. I think it was my most disappointing books of 2017. I think that's where I talked about it. But the book, I wanted to like it. And I never say romance would make a book better. But for this book, I really think it would, because Gwendolyn, the lead character, was really unlikable. And the plot changed so much throughout the book that it was hard to become connected to not only the plot, but the characters. But I am intrigued because there's a book two coming out, and it's coming out in 2018. So I might actually grab it from the library just to see what happens to these characters and see if what happens to the characters in book one, and to see what the thing is. I wasn't invested. I'm not invested enough to reread book one, but I might check out book two to just see if I like it. I had a chance to get it at New York City Comic Con, and I got White Rabbit instead, and hopefully I like that a little bit better. But they're psychological mysteries, a little bit a contemporary girl almost becoming an assassin, which I thought was kind of interesting. The mystery just was a little bit hard to follow sometimes, and I was not the biggest fan of the lead character. I've said this before, unlikable narrators really sometimes grind my gears, and this one was definitely that. But I would definitely consider reading The Grade when it comes out in 2018. Talk about is Cursed by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Years ago because of the Book Hype Book Club, and I enjoyed it, but admittedly it became super forgettable to me. And I think it's because after this, or before this, I had read the Darkest Mind series and the Shatter Me, part of Shatter Me, and I really love the Darkest Mind, so anything that does similar tropes to that, I really have a hard time reading, because I always think of Ruby in that role. But this book was about a girl who, they were in a very, very bad car accident, and she died, and her sister had the touch of bringing people back to life, and she brought her back to life, but because of that, now she has the touch of death. Anything she touches dies. And it was very tropey, and I just was not as super connected to the characters or the plot. I thought it was a little bit predictable. But the biggest problem I had was that you could tell it was meant to be more, and it was just a standalone. So I felt like they were setting this up, but then it didn't really go anywhere. So I'd be curious to see if she ever went back, which I know she probably won't. What was the plan? Because I thought it could be interesting if they developed it a little bit more, but there was no real like follow through. The plot just kind of died. So that's a book that just was a little bit forgettable to me. I would not reread that book, but I have read stuff by Jennifer L. Armentrout in the future, or want to, and I really want to dive into some of her, some of her more of her fantasy and sci-fi books that I haven't read yet. I want to read the Obsidian series. I want to read the Half-Blood series. So those are a couple that I just want to dive into that I haven't read yet. But that's another book that was a tad forgettable to me. I'm going to discuss in this video is 26 Kisses. About a year ago from when I worked on the other site, and I was encouraged. I had to read it for them, and it just did not impress. Like, it just did not wow me. I know that the girl was like had recently broke up with her boyfriend, and she wanted to break out of her comfort zone, and her thing was she had to kiss 26 boys to be all the letters of the alphabet. It just wasn't. It was okay. I felt like it just did not wow me. The plot didn't wow me. There was nothing like unpredictable. Like everything I predicted the whole book. There was nothing shocking about it. The characters were a little bit two dimensional. There was no like really complex characters. And most of the time when I read like contemporaries, I like it to deal with like a harder issue, or like deal with like more difficult topics like the Pushing the Limits or the Thunder Road series. So it just was okay. I would never reread it. I know I sent it to a friend when I was done with it, and I don't think she's read it yet either. But it just did not wow me enough to like look out the author's books. So let me know in the comments what are some of your forgettable books that you have read recently, and let me know why, and why you think that. But I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.